Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Our goal today is to talk about systemic disruption through signal sharing. Let's roll it.
GSC as a neutral observation.
It's really an enabler of
protecting
trust.
the world from cybercrime.
Nothing joining the dots.
Signal received.
Thank you. Good morning. We're getting there. We're starting to do the trailer movies. It's really happening. Our goal today, as I said, is to talk about systemic disruption through signal sharing. I don't know if I'm in the program, but I'm the moderator. I'm also a co-inventor of the platform behind the Global Signal Exchange, and I'm a co-founder of the Global Signal Exchange. So today, how do we break the supply chain of the scammer? How do we stop the phone number, the malicious link, the cryptocurrency wallet before they can cause harm? Oh, the answer is simple, but the execution is complex. Collaboration at speed and scale. To lead this charge, we brought together the key voices necessary to win this fight. They represent the moral imperative, the research, the platform capability, and the government tenacity needed for success. First, to set the tone and call us to action, the visionary behind the concept of cyber civil defense, a concept of collective defense that empowers all of us, Craig Newmark. Okay, we'll leave that big clap for Craig and I'll whip through the rest of you. We will then ground this discussion in the devastating reality, hearing from Alice Taylor of Oxford Information Labs Research, who will discuss the vulnerability factors and the science behind safeguarding, which is an important concept when we think about the Global Signal Exchange. Next, we move on to the platforms where this crime proliferates, is amplified, advertised. And we're very grateful to our co-founders and supporters, Google, Meta, our hosts here, Amazon, thank you. But to represent all of those, we welcome from Microsoft, Blay, who will share the essential role of global technology companies in protecting billions of users. And finally, to show that systemic takedown is achievable, representing the tactical governmental arm of the fight and leveraging their own tools like Status and the anti-scam products, we have Mark Chen from GovTech. Welcome all of you. Thank you. Craig, let's see if I can go on to this one. We'll get a bit more cozy here. Craig, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'm very grateful to you. You've spent a lot of time and money fighting online scams and funding cybersecurity work, including launching your new Take 9 campaign last year. I understand that before we begin today, you'd like to make another announcement on that front.
Well, my motivation is based on around 25 years fighting scams and other problems online. I think I was doing trust and safety when I just called it customer service, which I continue to do. I'd worked with a lot of cops and so on, but very quietly. Frankly, what I've seen, the results of scamming, I take it very personally. It pisses me off. And I believe in putting my money where my mouth is. So today I'm announcing a $1 million commitment to the Global Signal Exchange. My deal is all along, fighting scams has been tacitly a part of my cybersecurity portfolio. I decided I needed to get much louder and more active with it. That's part of this whole Take 9 campaign. Soon it will be difficult to get me to stop talking, but I'll do that now.
Craig, what can I say? What should we say? Thank you so much. It's really important that we do spread the load. And in this first year, in these early stages, you know, we were launched in January this year. We've had very generous donations, but we really mustn't depend upon any single one player. There is, you know, a factor of this, and that we're discussing today is speed. You know, collaboration at speed. We need to get this thing running, and there is a tension between hiring the amount of staff, the compute power, the storage, the outreach, the cost of attending events like this, needed to sort of set up and run the Global Signal Exchange, and gaining support, funding, and going through all the legal paperwork. So that cushion in those early stages is really essential to help us get this thing up and running quicker, because we've heard from the other workshops there's a real need to get this thing running quickly. Now, you often advocate for cyber civil defense. For people who think of scams as a personal problem, how does this concept, which is borrowed from World War II era, the collective effort, translate into practical steps that organizations and citizens must take today to defend the digital space? That was a question.
Oh, that was for me. Basically, that's the whole Take 9 theme, which is largely the idea of a national mobilization campaign, at least in the US, where everyone is motivated to play a role in fighting crime online. And it's occurred to me lately that a lot of the steps we need to take to protect ourselves as people think of cybersecurity are also a lot of the steps involved needed when it comes to fighting scams online. For example, we need to all think about single sign-on, multi-factor authentication, passkeys, and so on. We need help from the big guys figuring out what ecosystems we're already in and how we should use them. Yesterday afternoon, we saw that Google on Android phones is already taking measures using large language models on the phone to stop scams as they happen. I need to encourage all the big guys to get more involved and to get louder on it, because we really are together in this regards. One of the models is World War II, when everyone played whatever role they could. Frankly, we're trying to duplicate the success of, in the US, the Smokey the Bear campaign. Only you can stop forest fires. We're trying to replicate the success of Got Milk. And and this will date myself, we'd like to replicate the campaign wherein everyone bought the world a Coke, which Don Draper was instrumental in. And I know that's only a TV show, but it works for me. I'm going to stop talking again.
Thank you very much, Craig. So I'm going to move this conversation on to research, because part of our mission is to test the fidelity of the data, to collect the data, to help others get that data. So it's about sending and receiving signals. But we've got to make sure that that data is actually worth it, that it's actually employed to help people and mainly help consumers. That's where we position ourselves at the Global Signal Exchange. What can we do to protect citizens? Now, Alice, I'm going to invite Alice Taylor, who's the Research and Comms Manager at Oxford Information Labs Research, which is a not-for-profit that's looking at things like this. Alice, you wanted to talk about safeguarding. What can we learn from the concept of safeguarding in the collective battle to protect people and fight scams and fraud?
Yeah, so safeguarding is the term used in the UK for child protection. And safeguarding is all about sharing information. It's about joining the dots. And most importantly, it's about people feeling comfortable to share their suspicions. Because if you don't share your suspicions, there are no dots to join. So in safeguarding, my background is in healthcare. So let's say in healthcare, I have a patient, Jimmy, he comes in, and I notice that his clothes aren't washed. Now that could be a completely, there could be an innocent explanation for that. His parents could have been a bit tired, not washed his clothes.
I mean, we're all as parents sometimes guilty of that.
Happens all the time. Could be a sign of something more sinister. And then let's say a doctor observes Jimmy's got cuts and bruises on his hands. Again, perfectly innocent explanation is possible, but it could also be a suspicion, a signal of something more sinister. And if all those suspicions aren't shared because people don't feel comfortable or confident doing so, then there's no joining the dots. And safeguarding, for me, the GSC is all about safeguarding and all about joining the dots.
Right, and so, but in the last 11 months, I think most of our conversations have been with the lawyers. And the lawyers want to make sure that they protect their companies, and we're talking about moving data in and out of organizations that may be private data. And what you're saying is that those signals, those things that you may or may not be worried about, they may or not be evidence-based, count in the fight against scams and fraud.
In safeguarding, false positives and suspicions are as important as concrete evidence. And there's a lot of discomfort in the world of safeguarding because it goes against all our instincts to share things that we're not 100% sure might be a definite sign of abuse. But that change in safeguarding of giving people that freedom to just share your suspicions, your observations, without feeling 100% certain that they are a definitive sign of abuse has made a huge difference to children and adults in the UK.
Thank you very much. And I know we attend a lot of manels with this, so I'm going to give you one more for this. Your research focuses on vulnerable groups. Who are the truly vulnerable groups?
Yeah, so we set out in our research project, which is supported by google.org, to try and identify the groups most vulnerable to scams. And, the literature and our research has shown us there are none. Everyone is vulnerable to a scam.
Really?
And what we're really interested in...
isn't it always old people?
Yeah,
or
old
isn't that what people say?
They're a very small group. They're very far down on our data set. And much bigger groups are people who are financially aspirational or tired or distracted or jet-lagged. It's situational vulnerability is the big thing that is coming out of our research project because all of us in the right or wrong mindset are all vulnerable to becoming scam victims.
Thank you very much. I'd like to move on to Will Blay from Microsoft. Will, please set the context of your current, for us all, your current work with the Global Signal Exchange.
Yeah, so the way we think about the GSE at Microsoft is kind of twofold. There's one side, the jargon I use is the community side, where we are obviously going to ingest data from the community, use it for our internal models, algorithms, improve our detections, things like that. But also, we want to give data back to the community. Certainly, we recognize, given the size and footprint of Microsoft and how much we touch, there's a lot of good data that we can share back with the broader users of the GSE. So that's kind of one side of it. And then the other side of our use really lies around what I'll call one-to-one or small group sharing. While there is, again, the data on the community side that we can give back to everybody, there are engagements and things we've done in the GSE with other companies in it where they might have specific data that we can leverage and vice versa and give back to them through the GSE. So it's kind of that community being one aspect, but then also I'll call it one-to-one or small private group sharing where there are very niche or specific use cases where a company might have data or government might have data that is very specific for Microsoft and we have data that's very specific for them that we can send back and forth through the GSE.
Are there any success stories you can share?
Yes, certainly. I mean, we did something with the folks from Meta not too long ago. I won't go into it too much. I can talk more to folks about it later in our panel. But essentially, it helped both parties uncover some really interesting findings around user accounts. And it was a great kind of validation of we all talk about data sharing. We all talk about how good this can be. But actually seeing data get shared back and forth and there be real impact for both companies was something that was very encouraging and people were very excited about.
And what is the future? Is that lots of bilateral sharing just facilitated through the Global Signal Exchange or to expand that to others?
I think candidly, I mean, there always will be the need for one-to-one sharing, again, with very specific data sets, but I think where we see it going, especially talking to folks at this conference, where we'd like to see it go more into the future is setting, again, maybe more small groups, if you will, parties of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 companies that all are sharing a common mission, have similar types of data they can share with one another, ultimately creating this little pool. And again, different use cases cropping up inside the GSE. That's where we want to take it, and that's where I do see it going, again, through dialogue with folks here.
And let's move more to what's happening at the infrastructure level. What's the biggest challenge for a global company like Microsoft when taking down what we call scam infrastructure, the supply chain that delivers services and affords internet services to scammers? How does industry-wide cooperation, like through channels like the GSE, address the issue of cyber criminals simply moving shop across geographical borders?
Yeah, and I don't know if for folks who were here yesterday, we have some amazing people from our digital crimes unit, our DCU team, and my team internally works very closely with them on efforts such as this. But I mean, certainly, again, we have a lot of data, we have a lot of evidence and things that we can use to try to take down the bad actors, but obviously we are still only limited what we can do. So, historically it's been collaboration with law enforcement, government, but then also collaboration with our peers as well has been a bit of the limiting factor. So, again, we've seen through the GSE examples where we have shared data with Google, for example, back and forth, and that's leading towards criminal referrals and things like that that will be taking place in the future. So, the GSE being this kind of connective tissue to bring together the private sector, law enforcement, governments, et cetera, as a means not just to communicate with one another, but obviously exchange raw information and data with one another that can then be used to take criminal action against these groups has been very critical or key for us.
And so, and part of the point of this discussion this morning is systemic disruption. There's two ends to that, isn't there? One is just taking down and blocking, creating friction for the scammer so that they can't scam at scale so easily. The other is then actually law enforcement, and we're really pleased to have been working with the technical team at GovTech in Singapore, who are one of the first governments to actually use the utility of the global signal exchange, and I'm very pleased to welcome Mark Chen, their director there. Mark, Singapore has proven that you can systematically take down scams at scale and speed. What is the most important lesson in this journey you took, and what role does the government play?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so I think onto the first point, I think maybe the most important lesson is that systemic disruption through signal sharing, which is the point of this panel, actually works. I think what we've found is that as we work with law enforcement, our partners in the Singapore Police, we actually can see information about the end of a scam. Right? Someone goes and files a police report, someone loses actual money. At that point, the maliciousness is pretty much confirmed. With the benefit of hindsight, you even know how it unfolded, where the scammers first started talking to the person, started reaching out, what was the hook. And you can see everything with the benefit of hindsight quite clearly. However, I think by then it's, quite obvious, it's already too late. The victim has already lost money, it's already suffered a loss. But I think on the platform side, with the folks on the GSE, people like Meta, Google, Microsoft, you see the front of a scam possibly. You see a post, you see an ad, where the maliciousness is maybe not so clear. In many cases, of course, scammers are pretty clever. They're trying to disguise their initial approaches to use very similar language or tactics that legitimate actors use, and it may be very difficult to definitively know that this is a scam, but there's a lot of potential there. You can actually disrupt something before it even happens and really make a difference. So I think where signal sharing helps is obviously you can connect these dots, you can use it to actually help people. And I think maybe to share a little bit about what our team does and some of the work that in this space, we actually started our work with something pretty simple, building case management tools for the Singapore Police. So you just go to a website, you crawl, you get domain information and domain registration information, you log investigative outcomes. Nothing like too sexy, but I think that what it really enabled us to do is to convert this into a useful signal, or the best labeled data in the world is what I call it, actual police investigations, and train machine learning models. So this is like small-scale signal sharing within government agencies, but we train AI/ML models that really can replicate this at some scale. So today, I think we evaluate something like 400,000 potential scam websites every day. And we find just over 1,000 or right around 1,000 very likely scam sites that we share with our partners. So when we do a little bit more of that signal sharing, we share it with partners across the industry who can make a difference. So people like Google, people like Meta. And then the Google partnership is something that we're quite happy with. It's been, and Microsoft, of course. The Google partnership is something quite established. We've been doing it for a couple of years now. Today, I think every month, Google puts a Google Safe Browsing red screen warning on over 10 million times from our sites alone. So 10 million is obviously bigger than the population of Singapore, so unless everyone in Singapore is just repeatedly visiting scam sites, it's very likely that these scam sites, even though we find them targeting Singapore, actually have a global reach. So Google also does this really cool thing that we really appreciate, which is they take this information and they fan out across their platforms. So they look for emails that are circulating these websites or YouTube ads that are promoting these websites and take them down as well. So with Meta, of course, this partnership is a little bit newer, and I think really hoping to scale this up through the GSE. We also share scam sites to Meta. So I think some numbers there that are quite interesting is for the first half of this year, November 2024 actually to July 2025, from the scam sites we sent, Meta has taken down something like 17,000 scam entities or restricted them. And I think this has been quite helpful overall. So I think together with the efforts across the industry, across the government, this has, I think, really made a difference. Scam cases in Singapore are down 26% year on year if you compare the first half of 2025 versus the same period last year. And that's something I think we're across the government in Singapore quite proud of. Of course, the glass half full is that, the glass half empty is that scammers have unfortunately pivoted away from some of the online scams that we're scaled solutions into offline scams on like the phone, etc.
Thank you very much. Yeah. I'm going to cut you off there because I am running out of time. You're not running out of time. But I also wanted to thank you very much because there is a real change of mindset here, I think, that has been necessary, particularly with the tension between government, perhaps, and the big platforms, moving away from this. If we listen to Alice, we're moving away from this notice and take down paradigm towards what we call an observable database that others can pull from. And we can talk more about that. Please join us this afternoon. We can talk a bit about the difference between a clearinghouse global signal exchange and the more traditional, I send you 1 million URLs, why haven't you blocked all of those sites? Now, for some reason, in the last 20 years, that has not been working, so we are trying different things. Craig, I want to just come back to you briefly, each of you, in your opening remarks. What is the single most urgent change you believe the financial and technology sectors must embrace to shift the fight from reaction to prevention?
I feel mostly it's a matter of encouraging cooperation within the industry and within the philanthropic world. I'm not the right guy to really be pushing this, since that requires social skills. And
like you are today, I don't buy that.
like the Batman says, I'm probably not the nerd you want, but I'm the nerd you got.
Thank you very much. Alice, in the life cycle of a scam, clearly it's more desirable to prevent crime before it occurs, but when it comes to victim support, is focusing on prevention enough? You've got 10 seconds.
No.
No.
Well,
okay, right.
For the tech and government and everyone, they need to move towards prevention, but for victim support, we need to also think about the during and after a scam has occurred, not just prevention.
Wow. And I'll give the last word to Will, because he's had the least time. Give us a concrete example of how receiving a signal like a malicious URL from a non-traditional partner, like a bank or government agency through the GSE, allows Microsoft to protect its users faster.
I think in simplest terms, it's data that we didn't see or didn't have otherwise, so we can use it, ingest it, make sense of it, and use it to strengthen our defenses.
Thank you, all of you. I'd like to really thank my panelists this morning for a very interesting preview of more talks we're going to have later. Thank you for bearing with us this morning. Thank you all.